back, imagine. Ready?
Yes.
Okay, let's go. Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining and take your time to join this conversation and join this amazing session. I say amazing because I'm pretty sure it's going to be amazing. Talking to a person like George, it cannot be less than that. So thank you very much for taking the time joining us today for this session. And before we dive into the questions, we're not going to go very long into the introduction part because we already stole a couple of minutes. We had some technical delay of joining exactly on point. But we're going to keep it short for the introduction. And then we're going to go right into the questions. A bit of startup grind, and what is startup grind? Just to know, to let the people know that are new to these sessions. It is the startup grind is actually one of the biggest communities worldwide for entrepreneurs. Currently, we have access to over 2 million entrepreneurs, and we are active in over 600 cities and 125 countries. That is what we have today in terms of where Startup Grind is present. And when I say present, I mean we are doing events like this, events like we are having today with George, webinars. Today we're doing webinars because of the COVID. But when things were going to go back to normal, we're going to have the old-fashioned way of networking and shaking someone's hand and exchanging a business card and learning something new. So hopefully that's going to be soon with us back. Until then, we're going to have webinars and things that we can interact online, where of course we already have the tools. The new tools are coming, where they kind of try to mimic the reality that we had up until now. So that's about Startup Grind. And what I would like to do next is kind of tell my opinion about how I see George Roth. And that's going to be maybe surprising to you, but I like to kind of see George as the man of bridging the gap. And you will understand more when I say bridging the gap, because he's a man involved in so many things and dedicating his energy into so many things that helps bridge Romanian business ecosystem with the USA, specifically Californian business ecosystem. And not only, he's active also in a lot of NGOs initiatives that run in the US and also in Romania, which are really, really interesting and really fun to look at and maybe even get involved in. So, George, thank you very much for joining and taking your time to have a conversation with us. How is the weather over there? Because
yes, hi. Yeah, I mean, I am in a town called Los Gatos, California, which is near San Jose in Silicon Valley. It's the cats, Los Gatos. Mm-hmm. And I can give you great news. We can breathe the air, which is something that I never thought in my life I'll be able to say, because a week ago we were not able to get out of the house. Anyhow, we are still in social isolation. Most of us, we work from home and stay home. But other than that, we had a serious situation with the air pollution because of the fires. So the air was totally unhealthy. Now it's beautiful, it's sunny, and it's like normally it is in Silicon Valley.
That was the reason I was asking, because I know, I mean, there was a wave of all those photos, all reddish, from California with the bridge and everything. So that was the reason I was asking the weather. How is the weather like over there? So yeah, I'm happy that it's already kind of back to normal. George, I would like you to maybe tell the audience in a couple of words about you, some things that could be really memorable, just to know that they should know about you as a human being. And then we're gonna start over. We're gonna start the questions.
Yeah, we'll make it very short. So I was born in Cluj, and this event for me is like a virtual travel to Cluj, because I know I'll have so many friends who are in this event, and Stefan is from Cluj, and I miss really Cluj. In the last years, I could go to Cluj every 2 months, which I cannot do right now, unfortunately. But I love Cluj. I was born in Cluj, and I was very happy, and I'm very happy, and I was very fortunate be born in the generation which actually could profit from the birth of the IT education in Romania. So in my 9th grade, when we had to pass an exam to go to high school, it was created the first network of computer science high schools in Romania. They were created 4 computer high schools. So it was in Bucharest, Timișoara, Cluj, and Iași, the university centers. And we basically started programming in the 9th grade. So when I graduated my high school, which was called the High School for Informatics, which is the translation in Romanian of computer science. It was the European word for it. There was no computer science that time. And when I graduated, I was already a programmer, programming in 4 languages. So after that, I went to the University Babeș Bolyai, which I love the school, and it was a fantastic school for mathematics, and it is right now. It developed a lot. So basically, I studied informatics there. So after that, I worked in another fantastic center in Cluj, which was, I was very lucky to be able to get working there. It was called the Computing Center in Cluj, which was not only the first, I consider it was like the grandfather of the cloud business, because the concept was to have these computers, which were super expensive, in one center, and then basically all the companies around to access through phone lines and dedicated data lines to send their data up there, or even to bring it by hand in punch cards or magnetic tapes and run it on the computer and send the results back to the company. So this is the computing business, the cloud business right now. But that time, of course, this was in the 70s. Just to give you a date, I was at the computer high school between 71 and 75. That was the first generation. And then in 75, we went to the army for a year. And from 76 to 80, I was at the University Babeș Bolyai, graduated in 1980. And then I worked at the computing center in the computer-aided design department, which was something really special. And I emigrated in the United States in 1991. And from 1991, I worked as a programmer. First, I worked in sales because I couldn't get a programming job. We can talk more about this.
Yeah.
Selling stuff on the street. And then in LA, and then I got a computer job, and then I went through a few jobs until I started my company in 1999. And I stayed with this company till 2018, when basically we sold one of the assets that we developed to UiPath, which is probably everybody heard about. And with a few employees, we basically moved to UiPath, where I am even now. And I am at UiPath. My role is I am in the technology partnerships group, being responsible of the domain of document understanding and enterprise content management, and also responsible of a few strategic accounts of strategic partners, which will create technology partnerships. So that's very short an overview of what I did. And just to finish, aside of this, I am the Honorary Consul of Romania in San Francisco. We can talk more about this when
yeah, definitely
about the diaspora.
Definitely, we're going to touch that subject. But before going that, I'm going to just kind of build on something that you said around high school. And I'm curious about, the past and the kind of the foundation that holds the great man you have become. How does it feel to be talking about IT and technology in your high school years, looking back at it right now, in terms of it was maybe such a misplaced or not very common in those days, right? So you were part of this first wave of people that studied those
yeah,
fields.
I mean, I was probably the first generation which was educated for IT in Romania. It was another generation before us, which was a generation of people who learned, were changing their jobs and went in IT. So they were, first of all, researchers at the universities who built the first computers. The first generation was hardware. So people were doing the computers through hardware with all these old machines in Cluj, because we talk about Cluj was Dacic, which was at the Computing Institute at the Faculty of Mathematics, where the head was this member of the Romanian Academy, Tiberiu Popovici, was a famous professor. And they built computers. And then what happened, this was, I think, a fantastic event in history. In 1968, when the Russians, with the Warsaw Pact, for you young people probably even don't know what that was the military organization of the communist countries. They basically occupied the Czechoslovakia, and they went into Prague to stop the anti-communist. I mean, it wasn't really an anti-communist, it was a revolution for reforms in a communist country. And what happened, Romania didn't participate. And then the West got, in my opinion, a little bit fooled by the fact that we are actually dissidents to the Russians. So we didn't participate in this military, and they decided to help us with technology. So it was a list which was called the COCOM list, which represented the embargo on technology for the Eastern
countries. What was the name?
COCOM, COCOM.
Okay.
You can read about that. And Romania was not on that list, and for certain products. And then the French, because we are very good friends with the French, always we were, they basically took us and took the first generation of engineers. They were mechanical engineers and all kinds of other engineers, and they took them to France to educate them. It was France had a clone of IBM 360, and it was called, it was a company called C2I, Compagnie Internationale pour Informatique, in Lucien, near Paris. And they took all these Romanians, a few hundred, and they educated them to create from them programmers and analysts. So these were the two jobs. And these people came back and they spread the first wave of education. And I was lucky, and also the French, I mean, in Romania were some brilliant people, even in the communist time, who decided to create these high schools. And in this high school, basically, we had teachers, all these people who came back from France, and they were working in a few institutes like the Computing Center, Territorial Computing Center, or ITC, which was the Institute for Computing Technology, which they did compilers and hardware. So we had this chance to have these teachers. So that's how we were extremely advanced. The problem was, just think about, it was no internet. And Romania was isolated from the free circulation of books.
Yeah.
So to find an American book was impossible. That's why many people learned Russian, because the Russians translated every book in Russian, but not in another language. So that's why it was no internet. But with this French movement, they brought us a lot of documentation. And the Romania basically jump-started the industry at ITC. They started to create compilers, to write compilers, copying a lot of compilers, disassembled code. That's a different story, but still jump-started this. So I was, in my opinion, I was educated fantastically in Romania and among the first countries in the world who got this education at the high school level.
It feels very much like the same way how Silicon Valley has set themselves at the early days, right? Silicon Valley was at the beginning, as you mentioned before going live, it was a hardware based valley, right? It wasn't a software. So it looks like Romania had kind of the same upbringing and the same start, but we were left behind. So that's super interesting. And
that's a great point, because if you want to create a commonality between how jump started in Romania and how jump started in Silicon Valley, of course, we talk about different years, because in Silicon Valley, it was the Second World War. Before the Second World War, when the entrepreneurial stuff, Hewlett-Packard, they were working some military technology at Stanford. But the common part is that you have to have the education was the start. And because now is different, because you have the internet, you can have access to everything on the internet. That time, locality was very important, because the information did not circulate in such an easy way. So you had to have physical books. And don't forget, in Romania, the copy of the books was supervised by the Communist Party and the secret police. They were afraid of letting people to have access to a copy machine.
Become wiser,
Exactly. So the upper management in every company was protecting these copy machines. So in order to get a book and copy it, you had to have the approval of the general manager. So these universities, and in our case, the university, the Polytechnic in Cluj, the University Babeș Bolyai, it was also involved. ITC was the company, was the computing center, and the other one was a company called IPA, which was the Institute for Automatization, which they created industrial computers and robots, actually. So these were the people who, organizations which helped to create the first critical mass of experts, starting with high schools. So the similarity with Silicon Valley is probably the center focus of education which generated this.
Yeah. And I think also listening to you right now, the similarity is also with what we have currently nowadays, and this is also that something that you've mentioned around those three strategic, let's say, comebacks of Romanians back to Romania, right? So looking at what happened at the beginning and the jumpstart of the industry, and looking somehow in today's world and how Romanians are kind of jumpstarting the IP tech industry and not outsourcing. At least that's how we see it, the fresh startups. How do you see it in terms of
I mean,
Romanian
just to define exactly what Silicon Valley is, and this will explain why I never agree that people start talking with the Valley of Romania, of Europe, and stuff like this. No, I mean, we don't need to be, because Silicon Valley cannot be replicated. So there are three factors in Silicon Valley what makes Silicon Valley Silicon Valley. So even the way how the territory here, of Silicon Valley and how is the layout of the cities and stuff explains that. So if you take Palo Alto is the place where the University of Stanford is, which was the creator of this idea of combining entrepreneurship with education. And this is their brand right now. So everywhere, doesn't matter what faculty, if you go on campus, you will see they have like an accelerator of something. And they have a very effective system to invest in ideas with students while they are students and to get a minimal participation in the IP and the shares of a company created in one of their incubators. So you have Stanford, who created this movement. Obvious first time was on hardware. The first thing which created all these legends of the garages and stuff was Hewlett and Packard now, who actually has the headquarters on Stanford land. Stanford gave them the land for 100 years to put their headquarters. So university, if you go south, approximately 2 miles, you have a street which is called Page Mill Road. Page Mill Road, because Hewlett Packard created the first headquarters there, became the headquarters of the companies which were successful companies, which were funded and which had some ties with Stanford. And then if you go north 2 miles, you will go to Sand Hill Road, which is all the money, which is basically all the VC firms with Andreessen Horowitz and all the older ones. All the VC firms most of them are there. So you have money, education in the center, and not only education, network, alumni network, and also network of people related to Stanford. And then you have the networking with successful companies, and then you have the money. Well, in Romania, actually, you are missing. Let's assume that you can't have the volume of money, but that's even not an issue, I think, because I think it's more money than companies in Romania right now, and you don't want to. We can talk about globally launching a company in Romania, which is almost impossible, but you have money for startups and Series A and stuff like this in Romania. But obvious for global, you have to go to a different place because you can't launch from Romania. We can talk about this later. So we don't have as much money, but I think the biggest issue, which is we don't have this network of successful companies, which is here too, where there are, and the alumni organizations, which brings the network together. So the networking and the available mentors in Romania are much less than the mentors here available in Silicon Valley, where the number of successful companies is huge.
Do you think that universities should have started? I mean, maybe that's a very obvious question. How can universities kind of follow what happened over there? Universities from Romania, and maybe specifically Cluj, some guidelines. What are the things that need to exist in order to kind of copy that model or copy and improve that model?
Yeah, I think the Technical University in Cluj is following something because they have partnerships with large companies who are interested in access to the talent of Romania. I mean, many of these companies will go there not because they love Romania too much. They love it beautifully. Romania food is great, drinks are great, but aside of that, the access to talent is the biggest attraction. And the easy way to get talent compared, Silicon Valley is a war, man. I mean, right now, I don't know if you know what is going on. People are migrating from Cisco to Google because at Google, there is a new head of cloud, which came from Oracle, who is attracting all these people from Cisco to come to work for Google. So, but they basically, it's a war for the talent in Silicon Valley, and also the loyalty of the Romanian talent is much bigger than here. I have an example. Actually, it's a Romanian entrepreneur who had a very successful startup, Mixbook, and he had has roots from Moldavia. So, but he had a person who was the head of the usability, UX, head of UX, who was super paid. And he just told me, look, you know what this guy told me today? He said, look, I need to leave. I said, what do you mean? You are here for 2 years. Your salary is huge. He said, no, I don't care. I just feel that I want to change. So here, there is no loyalty. It's very few loyalty. I'm not talking about the founder. The founders are loyal. But if you need to scale up and to start getting the access to talent is much easier in Romania than here. And that's why these companies are looking at the universities, which is great. Because they, first of all, they put money into. I remember, for example, I brought to Cluj a company called Opsware few years ago, which was the company of Ben Horowitz. And he asked me through a friend of mine that he wants to create an office in Cluj to write drivers for their devices. Opsware was a network monitoring company, similar to the product with HP OpenView, if you know. And then HP actually acquired Opsware, and if you see the HP company, it's in Cluj. And the first thing that I did when I brought them to Cluj, I mean, I was asked to do this through a friend of mine to help them. And I said, this is great. I mean, Ben Horowitz to be involved in Cluj is great.
Of course.
And then I brought them, and the first thing I connected them with the technical university. And they put a manager with ties with the technical university, and they built a partnership with the technical university. They gave the software, they so did this. So it's essential that these universities partner with these companies who can bring money and also who can bring know-how. And through this know-how to create these teams which will form, and nobody will stay to work for Volkswagen forever. You stay, work for Volkswagen or from Siemens or for IBM, especially if you are young and you have an entrepreneurial spirit, you learn. You have to learn as much as you can from them, learn what not to do, and also start your own business. So I think the universities are on the right direction, especially the University Babeș Bolyai. I like that extraordinary, the new leader of the university who is super open to technology. Daniel is fantastic. Yes. And I think that can happen. And the money exists already. The VC structure is what doesn't exist at the universities is the alumni movement. Alumni movement is not exploited at all. So in the United States, the alumni of the big universities are huge organizations. First of all, the alumni donate money to the company. They also maintain a network. So if you go in no matter what city in the world and you are interested in a company, you can access a database and find if it's somebody who graduated the same university with you. And when you access him, immediately they will talk to you because it's part of their part of their culture. It's part of their fun life at the university. So alumni are missing for the university, in my opinion.
I'm super kind of I agree 100% with that. And also what I think is that Romanian universities are kind of leaving money on the table and opportunities on the table. I mean, they can easily become these initiators of co-working spaces, incubators, laboratories, labs of whatever kind of field, and they have those spaces in the buildings and so on. So they could easily go into things like that, and even start generating revenue, not building the next generation of entrepreneurs. So I see a lot of space for those improvements over there.
So look, a project for you, if you want. It's really, I mean, if you want, it's easy to do. Just let me know that you want to get in touch with the university incubators in Stanford, and I'll connect you with a few of them. It's no problem. Just tell me what domain you want and what faculty. Computer science, they have biotech, they have tons of them. Medical, they have tons of them. And I'll connect you and do an exchange. I think it's an interesting thing to study how this works and try to create. I don't know if there are no things like this in Cluj.
At least from my activity in the ecosystem, I haven't seen any kind of initiative of having like co-working spaces. They are in discussions right now. There's going to be a new incubation funding, something like that, which is called Innotech Student. So for that, I'm super happy. There's a lot of bright students that will have an opportunity to kind of showcase their ideas. But coming back to, not coming back, staying to the entrepreneurs of today. How do you see the young entrepreneurs today? What are they lacking, and what do they need so that they can be like more? They can have more grit in what they're doing. Are they prepared?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I just want to tell you that for Romania, it was a milestone. I was involved in promoting the Romanian IT in Silicon Valley, especially, and US from 1997. And that, I think, was a milestone. 1997 was a milestone because it was a delegation of a Romanian president, was Constantinescu at that time, who brought a team of IT entrepreneurs from Romania. Among them was Florin Talpeș, Radu Georgescu, many other people who became celebrities later with their companies. They came and they signed a strategic agreement of the Romanian government with Hewlett-Packard. I was there when they signed that. And not only that, in the bus, after that meeting when this protocol was signed, I was in the bus with these 30-something people from Romanian IT companies who were startups at that time. We had a discussion and we actually discussed, and that's why ANIS was created.
Mm-hmm, I know.
And ANIS is the Association of the National IT companies. There are two in Romania, ANIS and RES. So, but was Florin Talpeș there. So that time everybody was looking at outsourcing, no? And then something big happened. And I think that was a great trip organized for these 30 companies who learned a lot in Silicon Valley at that time. Then I would think it was another event in 2000, when was the change of the century. It was an event organized by the Romanian embassy at the World Bank. And there we had guests, a lot of American companies who was another delegation of Romanian IT companies, and each one presented what they do. So that was another place where they learned a lot. And then something happened in 2003, which I think is the milestone. In 2003, the first software products created by Romania were the antiviruses. Why? Yeah. Because Romania was considered one of the centers of hacking in the world. And
the paradox.
These two companies, which one was SoftWin and one was GCAD of Radu Georgescu, Florin Talpeș is SoftWin and Radu Georgescu is GCAD, they developed these fantastic products. One is called Bitdefender, it still exists, and the other one is called RAV, which still exists as a basis for the Microsoft antivirus. But Radu Georgescu sold the company. which Florin decided to grow it by himself, and he continues to grow it. He built a great company. JCAD sold this company, and what this was an example. So JCAD sold Roth to Microsoft for $20 million, I think.
Yeah.
They basically took the whole team, moved it to Microsoft, to Seattle. And basically what happened, this gave an example and learned the young entrepreneurs that there is another business than outsourcing. It's called the IP. The knowledge about IP, the intellectual property business, was almost zero that time. But with the example of Radu's Rav, this became an impulse to develop the young entrepreneurs. And it took time. It took time because in order to do entrepreneurship, you need money. I mean, and the Romanians are educated, and I was educated the same, and I did a mistake in my life. My father told me, don't borrow money, man. Spend only your money. And spending your money, it limits you a lot. I mean, yeah. Unfortunately, in Romania, we were not wealthy. And then these entrepreneurs, even the programmers, they were not paid like now. And then basically these people started to spend their own money. And this creates a lot of problems. It creates a lot of problems because you cannot develop a product, usually if you don't have a pile of money, and then you try to do two businesses in the same time, to do a kind of consulting business with what you develop. So then you cannot basically respect your roadmap of your product. So if you do two things in the same time, so one, to get some cash inflow, I know this so well because I did it. I am very good to teach people what not to do. And I basically had two groups in my company in Cluj. One was the consulting part, which was bringing the money, and the other one was the product part, which was spending the money. And we always, when we found a client for the product guys, they want, oh, I want to do something else. I want to do this. And then we changed the roadmap because we needed money for that. So we mixed the two businesses. So this is one of the errors which will happen when you have young entrepreneurs with underfunding companies, because they will start to bring money in the same time that they are building the product. Another effect of the fact that you find an investor is that finding an investor, it's a proof that your idea is actually viable for somebody else outside your family who was helping you to build your business, and friends. No? So basically this means that somebody outside who is interested in making money, it gave you credit and gave you money believing in what you want to build. And this is huge when you go and want to get the next round of money. Yep. So trying to finance your company from outside is great. And here it is very important. And this is happening in Romania. I mean, all these people who made some money and these new angel investors, VC firms, and corporate investments like BT, I know has. So all these are helping these entrepreneurs. So investment. Another very important thing is that the young entrepreneurs, if you are in your echo chamber, everybody is around you and says, wow, this is a fantastic idea. It's beautiful. We failed a company like this too. It was called Schedule in Cluj. And we had a brilliant founder who actually this Schedule was transformed in HIP menu later. We worked on a first internet calendar for 4 years. We spent $4 million in Cluj. And the problem here was that this entrepreneur came, it's a friend of mine here in US, who came from the hardware business. And he was a perfectionist. Mm-hmm. And he had this idea, we will not release this product which was actually a combination between a calendar and Evite. We will not release this product until this product is perfect, which is totally false, because you cannot do a product without users. And that's why we didn't release it. And by the time when we were ready, we rewrote it 3 times. Google came out with the Google Calendar. And then,
classic.
and then we had this, ours was much nicer. I mean, it was really fantastic. A lot of stuff, interesting stuff. And I went to Ben Horowitz. And I said, Ben, tell me what to do with this. You see, this is great. I mean, what you guys did, you combined the calendar with the Evite. It's really cool. You have only one problem. The problem is that Google launched it and Evite exists. To convince these people to put this together, it will need so much money that nobody will give you that money to be able to compete with Google and Evite. So basically, Schedule stopped. We used it for a while. It was a pretty expensive tennis matches scheduling system because we used it for our friends. We closed it down, and my friend, who was the co-founder, who financed this a lot, he sold the company for 500 million before. So he had how to found that. He basically transformed it in Hip Menu, and Hip Menu was sold to Panda.
Yeah, Food Panda, exactly.
Food Panda, yes, last year. And they killed it. They killed it, even if the Hip Menu was much better.
It was much better. I can confess that, and there's a lot of my friends that are saying that now the Food Panda is awful in terms of user experience, and Hip Menu was just flawless.
But this is the tragedy of many entrepreneurs. You have another Cluj example about this, Dunca, with his company, sold to Facebook, and the first thing what Facebook did, killed it. Yeah. It disappeared.
I did heard about this strategy of acquiring smaller startups just for the sake of killing that market share or acquiring that market share, and not interested in the technology stack at all. Just not giving them a chance to be, I don't know, bigger, better, whatever.
So this is happening. It's one in US. There are 2 companies who are called like the graveyard of technology. One of them is called Computer Associates. Computer Associates buys every and OpenText is too, another one. They buy lots of companies just to destroy the brand. And they, even if it's worse.
What's the commercial value? How do they make business?
The commercial value is if you have 2% market share, like Hip Menu. Hip Menu was acquired because Hip Menu took over 50% of the market of Romania.
Yeah.
And they did that. They created a fantastic food transportation business associated with it. Dan was, my friend who was the founder, was phenomenal into this. But the problem is they took the market share, and these guys got really pissed off. Their product was much worse, the Food Panda.
Yeah.
And then they said, okay, let's just buy them. And they buy them, and Hip Menu disappeared. There is no more Hip Menu. They shut down the whole software.
That's so sad.
This is happening. And now, if you are an entrepreneur who basically love only money, and I personally believe there are not too many like that. So I personally, I met a few, but most of the cases that you love what you do, and you cannot.
I agree.
Because you need to sacrifice a lot to do something. But if you are strictly money directed, then you do businesses like this. There are businesses who create games. They create games on a daily basis. They sold them and they sell them, and they don't care. They disappear. You don't care what is the outcome of what you do. And it's only money. That's cool. I mean, if that's your main motivation, this is a good model. Sell it, scare somebody, they will buy it and destroy you.
Yeah, it depends very much on what are you wishing for as you as an entrepreneur, or me, for example, because I know I want to build some legacy that I'm going to leave behind. So it depends very much on what you leave behind as legacy after the business. Either you can pass it over to your children, have a impact in the ecosystem or the community that you're living. So it's not always about selling, but it's I mean, money is important as well. So how do you think we can revive Romanian innovation
Well,
system?
that's the biggest problem, in my opinion, in Romania. And this is related, if you recall what I said, it is, what is the center of Silicon Valley? It's Stanford, it's the
Yep.
university. So in order to revive, I think this is the biggest problem. And I was involved, I mean, during one of the previous governments, I was involved, and the Romania had a great idea to bring together people from all over the world, from the diaspora, experts in different domains, in order to revive the Romanian innovation and to become like an advisory board for the government with no funds. So no salary, no nothing. And you had to sign a lot of documents that you are not involved in any companies with the government and stuff. So we're amazing people from Europe and US. And we created this commission, which was, it was associated with the government. But by the time when the commission was created, the government was changed. And basically the new government is just destroyed it. So the problem is that in the innovation, it's very important, one, the government to have an innovation program, but not a formal one. Because formal one will create the fiasco of the, you saw what happened when politics intervenes in the laser business, south of Bucharest there.
No, I
There are
haven't.
serious political situations there with all these people, manager one, manager two. So the government should let the scientists with the universities to run this, to revive the research institutes. And how can you do that? Partnerships with corporations.
Exactly.
From Romania and from outside, and with banks. Romanian banks like BT, who I know they are supporting a lot of innovation. So partnerships. Then you have to create these incubators, accelerators near the universities. So education is the center. Then partnerships, government, universities, and corporations. These are the three components which have to have a joint program in order to restart the innovation program. And of course, be very careful, because corruption, it is very dangerous. And in innovation, because you can, the money which goes in, if there are government funds into this, then it's dangerous. But I think these are the three pillars that you have to use. Again, it's university, education, corporations, and education, corporations, and government.
Yep.
These are the three pillars, have to work together.
On the same note, kind of in mirroring, how do you think can the Romanian diaspora help Romanian tech ecosystem?
Yeah, this is one of my favorite subjects. So I am involved I help an organization called Repatriot, who was started by some brilliant business people from Bucharest a few years ago. And their main goal initially was to help Romanians to come back home and to move back home after they worked outside. I mean, Romania, don't forget, has 3 million or 4 million, there are different numbers. It doesn't matter. A substantial percentage of the Romanian population is abroad. And what happened, aside of the negative effect of the exodus of the brain power, and not only that, exodus of workforce from Romania, it has a positive effect. In time, Romania, which can be exploited. Romania became a global country. So through the Romanians who are all over the world, I always like to give this example. So anyhow, the point, these diaspora all over the world made Romania global. And we have to exploit this. And I discussed with the Repatriot group, and I told them that, look, it's not only the physical repatriation which you have to focus on. There is a know-how repatriation. All these professors, these brilliant scientists of Romania everywhere in the world, they are spread. Only in Stanford, I know at least 5 world-renowned scientists with Romanian descent. So there is a know-how repatriation, which in know-how can be also in knowledge to start a company, knowledge to create a product, knowledge of all these other things. And then you have the financial repatriation. Financial repatriation is to convince Romanians to have some money, then basically to invest in Romania, which I did myself also. And all these, so it's know-how repatriation, you have the financial repatriation, and you have the physical repatriation. So if you do this, Romania, the global Romania, can become super powerful. And you see a lot of examples already happening. And already happening right now. So this is, I think, the key. So from these international networks for the entrepreneurs, I advise them to get in touch with the diaspora and also get in touch with the alumni and force the universities to invest in creating this alumni organization where you have access to the international alumni network, because these two are super important. And at least for me, if you guys come send me to Silicon Valley, I am helping a lot of Romanian companies to connect you with the right people. I am, we have an organization called Romanian American Business Network. It's a non-formal organization. We have a meetup, but there, if any company is looking for some partners or an investor, if you send me your stuff, I'll publish it on the Romanian American Business Network. And in this way, I can try to connect you with people. And I'm doing this as a hobby. I don't have any financial interest whatsoever. But I think you have to use the diaspora and the alumni organizations. I can't hear you.
Sorry, I was on mute because there was some background noise. So what you were saying right now is just, I mean, in 2 simple words, is giving back. And why I'm interested, why do you think, like, why are you keen on giving back, since you are that part of that diaspora from Romania? And talking before, you said that you have some acquaintances that are not interested anymore in giving back to their community. Why are you have that passion of giving back, and why giving back is important?
Yeah, I think the people who don't think about giving back to their birth country are exception. I think that over 80% of the people who emigrated are thinking to Romania. And giving back it's in different ways can happen. So there is no, I mean, of course, if I sell a company for $50 million and I have extra money, I will build a hospital in Romania, maybe, or help an organization, an NGO. But aside of that, giving back can happen in multiple ways. Giving back can happen strictly getting involved and advising somebody of how to start a business. Giving back means to contribute to an NGO in Romania, the roof, because we have Coca here too. So the Romanian United Fund, this is what they try to do, is to unify the effort of the American Romanians to put the money and focus the money in creating counterparties with Romanian NGOs who have beautiful programs. And the COVID program was fantastic to see how that evolved and how money was brought together. So it can be financial, but not everybody has financial money. Giving back to Romania means also to go and vote when you can. And now the infrastructure to vote exists. So vote, that you give, because there is a political repatriation which happened with the last election, which didn't happen before, because the governments didn't put an infrastructure to allow the Romanians to vote in an easy way. Now that exists. So there is a political repatriation, the fourth one. So you give back. Another way to give back is basically, if you create a company like I did in Romania with some co-founders, try to teach those people who work for you. And one of my biggest satisfaction, my company didn't grow a lot, but I have a lot of people who left my company and started their own businesses. So that's giving back, because you showed an example of a healthy company, of how to, not healthy, I mean, let's say a correct company, and you taught them something from how do you think. And these people, you are a mentor. So all these ways are giving back, and the success of your giving back is basically reflected in how happy you are. Because you can say, look, I helped this organization to raise money for the creation of the first palliative care houses in Romania, who is this foundation from London. So this comes, and everybody I saw, and I am very happy about this, all these young entrepreneurs in Romania that I see, almost all of them are involved in NGOs. In a way or another one.
Yes.
So this was really, I saw this in the COVID crisis in April in Romania, when I started to work closer with Roth, Romanian United Fund, and this is really cool. I think the young generation is getting back into this non-profit movement and getting more active into this.
I'm happy about that, and even what we're doing today, Startup Grind, it's a non-profit movement and helping people. We're bridging information between Silicon Valley and Romania. That's how I kind of like to say it. But not only Silicon Valley, that was in the early days. Right now we have people and guests from all over the world. So that's why we're bridging information and kind of bridging the gap of that physical distance. But before I move to my kind of one or two final questions, for the people that are still connected with us, please prepare your questions. If you want to ask something, George, whatever you're watching, if you're on Zoom or you're watching live on Facebook. So drop your questions in the comment sections if you have them. If not, you can drop them as in the inbox. And now going to my next question is, I just want to put you in a scenario, George, and in a mentee-mentor context, and give you this story. I'm a startup founder in Romania, and I have this brilliant idea of how my company will become a formula of generating wealth for the next generation of entrepreneurs from Romania. What would be your top 3 recommendations for me to start doing and think about, direct my energy into it?
Okay, to recap, so you have a company, an idea of a company to bring
wealth to next generation of entrepreneurs.
Okay, only entrepreneurs.
Yes, only entrepreneurs.
IT or
IT,
not?
yes, tech.
Okay, IT entrepreneurs. That's different. Definitely, if I mean, you can bring wealth to the entrepreneurs. That's in my opinion, it's a false objective of the company. Is basically what you can do is to teach the entrepreneurs what to do in order to bring wealth. Mm-hmm. So you cannot. What you can do, if you establish a brand, So how these incubators or these organizations like here in Silicon Valley work, like Y Combinator or stuff like this, or rockets, how is it called, rocket space. So these are, so you can create a brand and create relationship with investors and with corporate sponsors and with create a network of advisors which will be there to help your members to basically become successful. And you have to have two types of advisors. So I consider myself, I mean, there are fantastic entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley. I'm not in the first tier of super successful exit entrepreneurs, but I consider myself an excellent advisor for what not to do. Because I did so many mistakes in my life, which I mean, it were the good thing, it was not fatal. I always saved the situation somehow. But I know what not to do. And to have these two types of advisors and stay away of the false advisors, because there are tons of Silicon Valley has a whole network of people who try to get involved in startups, get them asking for a lot of money and promising investment. Nobody will invest you from a VC company if you cannot sell your stuff and you don't do something valuable. A VC will not invest in you because he knows your advisor. Maybe if the advisor has a good tracking record that everybody they advised got the investment, yeah, that's important, because then the advisor will not involve with you. First of all, you have to find out if they have proven record of successes.
Mm-hmm. I think, yeah, okay, that's a good thing. I mean, we use that kind of doing our due diligence on different companies we work with or clients. So we do that check on the track record. So yeah, okay, that's a good advice, especially the first one, of course. So that's a good one. Thank you very much, everybody, one more time. And George, thank you very much for taking your time and sharing some knowledge, some wisdom from all the extensive professional experience that you had so far. And hopefully we're going to have you coming soon back, or getting some new collaborations, bridging the gap.
Thank you very much. A lot of successes, and stay healthy, everybody.
You too, George.
Okay.
Thank you very
Bye.
much. Bye.
Bye-bye.